in this video we are going to discover the wondrous thing that is the fennel. Fennel is one of my favourite vegetables. They look bizarre. You may or may not have seen them in the grocery stores, and sometimes they chop them off so it's just the bulb, so you don't see all the frothy bit. So you may actually have seen a fennel and not recognised it because it didn't have this top piece. But normally they come with all the fronds on. So this is a fennel. It's one of my favourites. And similarly to celery, fennel, raw fennel, which you can totally eat raw fennel, it's lovely, it's super crunchy, which is one of the things on keto that we often say that we miss is crunchy. So fennel eaten raw is very, very crunchy like celery, but it tastes completely different once it's cooked. The flavour of fennel, if you've never had it, is kind of on the aniseed side of things. So if you like aniseed, you are going to, or licorice, you are going to absolutely fall in love with fennel. However, once fennel is cooked, the licorice flavour turns into something else, something mellow. So if you're not a huge fan of licorice, then I would look for fennel recipes that involve cooking the fennel, not eating it raw, but you can do either. And as I say, if you like the whole aniseed thing like I do, you will absolutely love it. So this is just a little video. Now that you've bought your fennel and you're wondering how you attack that, because it's a bit more complicated than a lot of other vegetables. So I'm going to show you 2 ways that I prepare a fennel. So first way is if I am using it in a salad, or if I'm using it in a recipe. For example, I have a great recipe for orange thyme sheet pan pork chops. If you're doing it for something like that, where the fennel is an integral part of the dish, it's like you can see it, it's visible, so you want it to look pretty, then this is what I would do with it. Also, if you're using it raw in salads, this is what I would do. If you want it to look attractive, this is what I would do. I'm having a problem with the fronds. While I'm talking about fronds, these fronds can make fabulous garnishes for things. Fabulous garnishes. So kind of like parsley, but free. Comes free with your fennel garnish. Okay, so I'm going to get my knife, and that you'll see here that there is a kind of a rooty bit almost. So I'm just going to cut that off, and I'm going to discard it. If you've got any super brown bits, I would also just remove those. So I've got the bottom off. And then what I'm going to do to make them look pretty is I'm going to just go through and thinly slice it. Now you notice that I didn't kind of go crazy and chop all the top off, and because the top is super handy for gripping, for holding it while you are slicing. You'll see that that rooty bit gets very thin very quickly. There's hardly any root there now. So holding on to the top parts, I am just going to work my way up. If this is not your first rodeo of videos with me using a knife, you'll know that there are no prizes for being able to chop it fast. However, there are prizes for having chopped it and retained all of your fingers. So, once you've got really to end of the bulbous part. I'm going to take those side bits away. That's pretty much it. So now you will see that this, it doesn't make rings like an onion. It kind of makes these beautiful crescent shapes. So you can either at this point, and of course you can do it as thick or as thin as you like, or as you can go safely, and use these either in a salad or, as I say, for example, in my orange thyme sheet pan pork chop recipe uses these pretty much whole. What you can do if you like is once you've got your rings, I will often just cut them in half so they're a bit smaller, so you haven't got an enormous piece of fennel, but you do you. You can do that or not. And if you do have any of the bottom of the root parts in, I would just take those out. That one doesn't want to come out. That I think is pretty much the last big rooty thing. And then just, that is a root piece, and then I am just going to cut these in half to make more bite-sized pieces. Separate those rings, as I say, as thin as you like or as thin as you can safely cut. And you will also get some whole rings. As you get into the middle, you'll get some whole rings. I love fennel, and I think fennel are absolutely beautiful. I think they look stunning in a dish, but I also love the way they taste. So that's one way that I prepare a fennel bowl. Start at the bottom, take that big thick root out, and then just slice up, and then if you want, cut them in half. So that is the first way that I prepare fennel. Let me just change out, get a new board here. For these bits, if I'm using fennel in the way that I've just shown you, for these bits, these would be great. You can use the tops as garnish. You can also add these if you're making bone broth or something like that. You can chop these up and add them to your bone broth. So for right now, you could just put them in a baggie and stick them in the freezer, and then next time you're making bone broth or any kind of broth, you can pull those out, chop them up and add them. Now the other thing, sometimes I have recipes, or you will find a recipe that calls for your fennel to be finely chopped. So what I do there is I start by cutting that bottom big root off, and then I cut wow, that took a bit of effort to get through. Then I cut the tops off temporarily. I'm actually going to take that bit out. And then what I do is I get my fennel and I cut it in half. And then each half, so I go this way. So there's the fennel standing up, I cut it in half, lie it down, and then I slice this way. Oh, that doesn't normally happen. So I'm holding it with my finger and thumb and I'm slicing this way. And this will make sense in a minute. It's kind of like an onion. It's a bit like an onion. My fennel doesn't want to stay together. So clearly you need to grip quite hard when you're doing this so that the fennel doesn't come out. But I cut it like that way. You do need to pinch quite hard so that the fennel doesn't slip out with your knife. And then once I've done that, then I finally slice this way. Again, no prizes for going fast. Big prize for ending the operation with all your fingers and thumbs intact. If you have a mandolin and you like to use it, obviously you can do that. But for those of you like me who like to cut things with a knife, will find that therapeutic. So once you've got to that point, if you want it finer than that, then I just do the kind of like if you were chopping herbs technique. You want to use a chef's knife for this. A chef's knife where it has the blade is a lot thicker than the handle, so when you cut, your fingers do not smash on the board. So that is how I prepare fennel if I need it finely chopped. And if I'm doing fennel like this, finely chopped, I will also use these. Those top very end bits can go in your freezer to go with broth. This bit is all getting a bit difficult. And then I simply slice those up. And then back to our chopping technique, if you want them fine. If you are doing these for fennel for a salad, you can just add these whole as little discs in with your bigger pieces. But that is how you prepare a fennel. They're an odd-shaped vegetable, and so sometimes people are intimidated by not knowing how to cut them or how to start, but you're missing out on a great, big, tasty, crunchy treat if fennel is not in your ingredients list. So there we go. There's our chopped fennel. Here's our sliced fennel. Enjoy!